Okay, we're going to look at AstroNavis Merchant, and more importantly, AstroNavis Merchant Advanced. They're essentially the same game. The Advanced game puts a significant larger focus on spaceship operations and some more complex aspects of it. It's kind of funny. I read this last night. I read the AstroNavis Merchant last night. And, well, how I ran into this, I was going down to put away whatever it was I just played, Citadel of Blood. And I don't know, I must have bought this at an auction. I actually looked it up. I did buy it at an auction. It's a print and play game that somebody made. You have to buy the rights to it, basically, to print and play it. And, you know, the rights limit you to, like, yeah, you can share it with up to, like, 6 friends or 4 friends or something like that, in terms of you can make components for that. But more than that, you're just screwing the authors, so don't do that. And I'm pretty sure the guy who did this, who sold this to me, was not screwing the authors. I'm pretty sure he bought it, assembled it, made nice print and play laminated components for it. And it came with like a handful of cubes in it. I'm using a bunch of GMT extras that I got in a con. They do like giveaways of stuff they don't want to stock in their warehouse that they have too much of or whatever. Anyway, from, I think, Falling Sky over there. But anyway, none of that is all that important. I was intrigued by the description of it. This was, I'm sure I bought this relatively early, 2014 or earlier, certainly, but maybe much earlier than that. When I was on kind of a kick to get cool seeming stuff, especially science fiction stuff, but other stuff as well. But science fiction was really my focus. And I picked up a number of them that I never really played that intrigued me one way or another. And this one I never even really looked at. I just got it from the auction. This was the only thing I ordered. And it was sitting, you know, right near where Citadel of Blood goes in my file cabinet. And I'm like, that looks interesting. I don't fucking remember this. And, you know, I pulled out the rule book, or what seemed to be the rule book, and read through it, looked it up online as well to see why the hell I had it and everything. And I was a little confused to find out that I actually didn't have it on my list. Well, I had this on my list because this is what I would have played. But I switched the title of what was on my to play list in case you like got bumped there for no good reason. And you're like, what the fuck? You didn't just buy this. Oh, he edited it. What the hell? I should unsubscribe to that so that, you know, I stop being bothered by it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure anybody who's still subscribed to that list, a few, because I get like a handful of thumbs to new things that I add. Some of them are obviously from the game page itself being put on a list. Some people are just like, oh yeah, you know. But other people, you know, just because they're into the game, or they're like, oh, this is what's going on with this list. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd be into that. But yeah, almost nothing gets more than like 10 thumbs, you know, nowadays. Whereas something like Citadel of Blood, which was in my original batch coming from back east, had like 41 thumbs or something. And yeah, it's not a perfect system, but anyway, this is what I saw, and I don't know if I was influenced by a conversation I had online during Citadel of Blood, but this certainly, like, I thought this would just be another economic science fiction game. Well, it's close. Almost all the economic science fiction games that I have are either you're running corporations, or you're doing something kind of like Gal Trader, where you're flying around, maybe fighting some, but mainly just, you know, picking up goods, paying for them, and delivering them. But there's another model, and this game is based on the late 20th century model of shipping, where you're not really looking at kind of that merchant adventure type look. Speaking of which, the guy I was talking to was the designer of that, along with another game that I covered. But in this one, it's looking at a very, very different kind of thing, which is sort of the day-to-day operations of what would be like a space tramp freighter, and how that would work. Now, the core components of it, you know, it's print and play, so you do what you want with it, right? The core components are a bunch of these things that luckily I have laminated copies of, which I usually am not a big fan of lamination, but it's a way to make what's not a bad stock here into something much, much sturdier. But the regular counters are very, very thin, you know. Again, they're on stock. And again, this is just, you know, whatever the guy who owned it printed out. And I'm okay with that for the counters for the planets, because they're not going to move around, ideally. But for all these tracks, things are going to move around on them. And I find picking up these little things difficult. And I think that's why there were, like, you know, 4 cubes or something in the game. But I'm kind of wondering, 4 would not do it, right? And he obviously didn't use these. He like cut one out and then was like, screw this, man. So he probably scavenged cubes the same way I did. I'm just wondering why there are any in there. I've got a bunch of spares here, tokens and whatnot, in case I decide I want to do things a little differently than I'm doing them. Let's explain some of the components before we jump into the rules. But essentially, that tramp freighter model, instead of going out and buying a load of cargo out of your pocket as the ship's captain and hoping to make a profit off of it at some other planet, which is a perfectly fine mechanism, but instead of doing something like that where you're actually speculating, here you're taking on predetermined cargoes, which is usually a minor part, if anything, of a game, in order to haul them and getting your cash from that. Now, the captain has a capability in the advanced rules to do a little bit of investment, but it's not the same kind of investment model as you're going to be used to. It's just basically, I buy some stuff and I'm going to sell it at my destination. And I don't know what I'm going to get for it, but we're not really paying too much attention to what the materials are. This is the space grid with all the planets on it that are in the universe, well, in the area under play. And it's broken into a couple of different regions. This is, I don't remember what it's called. AstroNavis is apparently a system or a world that's out, a universe that's out there. And this is the only thing I have of it, I think. I don't know, maybe I bought something else without knowing. No, I looked up AstroNavis in my PM. Yeah, there we go. What am I going for? Yeah, so yeah, Alliance. So this is the Alliance outer reaches of the core. This is the frontier worlds of the Alliance. And then this is another species, race, whatever, that is run into, called the Hovelin. Most of your trading is going to be within Alliance territory, but there might be opportunities or advantages to dealing with the Hovelin. There are serious disadvantages to doing so, though. And it has a mechanistic way that you set up the board. This is what I got out of it. I'm not sure I did it correctly. What I ended up with is very few Hovelin worlds. That's fine. There aren't any more that I know of. We got cards for all the worlds in the game. Anyway, there's very few of them, and there's quite a bit of space between them, which might or might not happen. I mean, it's possible that you wouldn't have that much space based on the vagaries of how these blue planets get placed. Really not sure that you could end up in this row, but I don't know. Anyway, in addition to that, you have cards for each planet that give you specific information on the planet, tells you a little bit about it. One of the few Hovelin worlds where contact with humans takes place. Some event checks that can happen there, and information about how you can cope with, dealing with that planet. In addition, you have a number of displays. A display that represents this is for both, I think. A display that represents your ship and its cargo, okay, and any passengers that you're carrying. You're allowed to carry 6 passengers. Again, they're going to be a minor part. It's kind of interesting. Again, one of the authors had been reading about these tramp freighters and thought that would be a really interesting thing to do a game about. And then their partner in developing the game suggested to fit it into the universe that they were already creating in a space-type system. Great. But the weird thing is, or not all that weird, but the thing is, when I went to live in Venezuela, and we were supposed to just move there for life, right? But we only stayed like a year. We took one of those tramp freighter type situations to get there because it was cheaper than flying. We had a lot of stuff we wanted to transport. We sold a lot of stuff, but we had a fair amount of stuff, and we had a dog and a cat. And the idea of flying with all that seemed really complicated. And it was kind of like sort of a mixture of, traveling and a vacation at sea. It was really kind of a cool experience from what I understand from my parents. I was there, but I was very young. I have memories that go back that far, but very few from aboard the ship or anything. But apparently, there was like steak every night and fancy food. But in addition, it was, having the run of a ship, and the pets were running around on it and everything. Anyway, wow, talk about getting off topic. But yeah, it's kind of just an interesting thing that I have very, very little memory of. Very little memory of Venezuela, or until I'm about 9, I don't really have much memory. Continuity kind of starts there. All right, so where were we? Yeah. So we have the planets which are randomly placed so that the game is going to be a little different every time. I don't know how necessary that is. Obviously, that kind of doesn't fit the universe that well if you're randomly placing the planets, but it makes for more replayability, I guess, kind of, sort of. You have the ship display, which shows, again, the captain's cargo and the passengers. I'm not sure what the priority is about. I don't recall that being a rule. So I'm a little confused about that. You have various ship systems. Now, these are not in the basic game. This is the advanced game thing. For the basic game, all you need is this. You're not going to track all this other stuff about the ship, and I may have just missed the priority thing. These different systems have a maximum value that you start with at 3. They can become damaged, and then you'll mark them like this, but you can also upgrade them and fully refurbish the ship with better equipment. You're not able to buy a new ship in this game. You're not able to get a bigger hull or anything like that and haul more cargo. This is really you're going to be scraping by trying to make your deliveries and make a profit off them. This is not the kind of game where it's like, the profits are immense. You've got a really worn out old freighter, and you're covering planets that, maybe, and carrying cargoes that maybe the big freighters aren't willing to deal with. Anyway, Spare equipment that you can use to do repairs. Crew, and these numbers aren't at the right place. I think these are both supposed to be at 3. That are, I don't have fuel here. It's over there. Okay. Crew, which is going to help you in terms of running the ship itself when you try to do something with the ship. Nothing fancy, just like flying. You know, you have to make crew checks sometimes, and if you damage something, the crew, the higher the value, it's the better your crew is, the more likely you're going to be able to repair things. You have a game turn track here. The game is significantly longer in the advanced game than in the basic game. I looked at the basic game, it looked just too simple. All this extra stuff, though, feels like it's going to add something to it. Let's look at this display. This is going to handle how much cash on hand you have. Again, the numbers aren't set right. Fuel, which I know starts at 99. Different cargoes that you have, and you're going to be tracking whether the cargo takes up your entire hull or just half your hull, okay? And the type of material you're carrying as a cargo, and the source and destination space. And I'm going to use a little white marker for source, gray marker for destination, I guess. There are specific markers for that, but I don't feel like the little thin counters moving them around is going to be a wise choice. And since you could have a full cargo would remember, I don't like wooden pieces. A full cargo would use up your entire ship's cargo, so you would only be using this one if it's at full. But if you have a half cargo, and that's why this has a half, you could have 2 half cargoes that you're hauling. And the payoff will be less, presumably, if you have that. This display is used to determine what cargoes are available at the given planet that you're at. And there can be up to 3 available at any time for you to pick up and transport somewhere. And again, you record where it's going to go, how big it is, and what type of goods it is. And then you make your decision based on that. You probably don't actually need that track. I don't know. I guess you do. Like I said, you have the planet cards. You have some tables here, not double-sided. The first table. I had different tables. Okay. This first table is determining the source and destination, the type of cargo that you're hauling, and it's based on the kind of planet that you're dealing with, as well as the destination that it's going to. So you don't have to make the decision of, will this be a profitable run? Somebody else has made that decision, and they're just paying you to haul it based on the materials and where it's going. And then this will allow you to calculate how much the cargo pays off. This is basic expenses that you have to pay each turn. Well, this is every turn you just pay 20 bucks off of your money for maintaining your ship, paying your crew, all that shit. But these other 3 are your fuel costs, and actually that's replaced because you have this is weird. You have an advanced expenses. You can go faster than speed 2 in this game. Basically, you can go as fast as your engines allow you to go. And you also have to worry about repairs. This will give you the cost of fuel that you can pick up at various ports. And you compare the port code to a die roll to see how much fuel and what the cost is. And the better the port, the better the cost is probably going to be. It gets really bad at shitty ports, and you may not be able to refuel there at all. You probably don't want to count on that. Here we've got the crew hiring table. Again, similar to the fuel, you can make a roll to see how many spares you could buy and what their cost is, how many passengers are available, how much it's going to make you by cross-referencing how far away it is. how much you can pay on captain's cargo. I think that's per, and then how much it sells for. Now, I think if you choose to buy captain's cargo, no, that's not it. It's if you choose to hire crew, you're forced to take the crew on, which is to say that like you're replacing members, maybe switching stuff around and whatever, and you may be getting a lower quality overall crew by doing that, if you're at a shitty port. So you may not want to make that roll. I got to swap batteries, and we'll talk about a couple of the other tables. We looked at this one already. We also have the sequence of play written out here for the advanced game, which we'll talk about. And then an events table roll. And we've got two sides of that. This is not on the other side of that. I'm glad he made everything one-sided except for that one table, and I'm kind of glad that he made that one two-sided. Because these others, there's an argument for having them one-sided, but for the events, look, it's just looking something up. We also had some additional printouts, which I don't know why those were done and not laminated, but maybe they were, imperfect somehow. There's two rule books. They're different. Yeah, no shit. The base rule book goes into a little bit more detail and gives you a little bit more color and stuff like that, and prettier pictures and everything. And I think you actually buy the two games separate, but honestly, you kind of need both if you're going to do the advanced. And like I said, the basic looks a little too simplistic. Now, I'm going to go relatively quickly through the rules. I'm not going to read them the way I often do, because I think I've given you a broad overview of the flavor of the game. So let's look at the advanced sequence of play here. Yeah, I don't need that one copy. Okay. So one of the key things is if you start the turn in deep space, you can spend the turn moving a number of squares equal to your current engine value. Now, that's going to cost you fuel. It's very cheap to move very slowly, and it's very expensive to move very quickly. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, here it is. 2 units if you move 1 square, 16 if you move 2, 54 if you move 3. But if you begin either on top of a planet counter and you want to land on that planet, it only costs you 1 to make like in-system maneuvers in order. And this game assumes a faster than light drive. And if you're on the planet and you want to leave the planet, it's going to cost you 1 fuel to move in system out to where you can start hyperspacing. Okay. If your ship is underneath a planet counter, even if you just placed it, you roll for an import event, and then you're allowed. Oh, somewhere there's an event here. Yeah. In each case, basically each turn you make a die roll, right, for an event. Now, when you're entering or leaving a planet, you actually make a die roll for doing that. And when you enter the planet, you make a die roll for random events before you unload your cargo to find out what happens on planet. Then you unload any cargo that you have as for this destination, and you get your payout based on the payout chart here. Any passengers also disembark, and you're allowed to sell you must sell your captain's cargo by rolling on the table for that, and you just hope you make money off of it. Okay. The next thing is repairs, upgrades, and refueling. This does not have to be done on planet. If any of your ship's current ratings are below their maximum, you can have your crew attempt to repair one of them by making a crew roll. If you succeed in making the crew roll, which is, I think, less than or equal to the crew value, you automatically, you expend one of your spares, you have to have one available, and your level moves one up towards its maximum. That's the crew repair roll, which you can do on any turn, but there are limitations. Let's see. You can't do engines or hull systems if you move faster than light, but you can do it if you moved in system. You can't do cargo gear repair if the cargo was loaded or unloaded earlier this turn. And you can't do any crew repairs at all if the port is going to make any repairs or upgrades or the ship's going to refuel. Look at more of these. Okay, if you started the turn underneath a planet and you didn't just unload or load cargo this turn, you are allowed to check for cargo just as long as you didn't load it, and you didn't just make a crew-based repair attempt, you roll for an import event. I think you roll for an import event every turn that you're sitting in port. And then you have the port repair or upgrade your ship if it has the appropriate facilities. It can't be a Hovel port. It has to have a level 2 through 4 in order to do any repairs. It has to have a 3 or 4 to do an upgrade. And repairs just cost $20, but they don't cost you any spares, and they're automatically successful. Upgrades cost you the number in gray here. Now, you're never going to be below a maximum of 3, but those numbers are there in case you want to fiddle around with the game and, you know, make different kinds of scenarios or something. Where you have a shittier ship and you're trying to do different things, who knows? Okay. If you started the turn underneath a planet counter and you didn't just unload or load cargo this turn, you are allowed to roll to check for cargo, and you didn't just make any crew or port repair or upgrade, you're allowed to buy more fuel, and you roll for an import event if you haven't already done so, and refuel your ship to whatever degree you want. But it takes your turn to just check the price of fuel. That's important. All right. Well, there may be other things you can do. Buying spares and hiring crew. If you're in a non-Hovel port, regardless of any other activities you do, you can check to see if there are any spares available and pay their cost if you wish. If you're in a non-Hovel port, regardless of any other activities, you can check to see if there's crew available, and you will get that new crew if it's available. All right, passengers, captain's cargo, and expenses. If this is going to be your last turn in port, you have no additional cargo operations, port made repair, upgrade, refueling next turn planned, you can check for passengers and check for captain's cargo. If your current or destination world is not a Hovel one, and you must have a cargo with it and the destination. So you have to know where you're going to take on passengers and to take on a captain's cargo. And it kind of makes sense. You're gambling, but you know what materials will sell, you know, what goods will sell well that you can put on board and stuff like that. Now, your captain's cargo isn't going to take any of your cargo space. It's just special trinkets and stuff that you're buying. You roll on the passenger availability, and the passengers will pay 1 unit of money for every 4 squares or fraction thereof between the first cargo world and your current world. And then you mark how many passengers you have on board, which is a maximum of 6. You will be allowed to pick up more passengers en route if you stop at other planets for some reason. If the captain's cargo track is at 0, you can roll on the buy captain's cargo. If you decide to buy the personal cargo, deduct its cost and move the counter to the square that you want to purchase of it, you don't have to. And then you pay your everyday costs, which is $20. You do that every turn, no matter what. You know, it's coming out of your bank account or whatever for for your ship loan. And then the turn marker moves forward. Now, the game can end anywhere between turns 48 and 52. And the reason for that is if you end up on a planet where you can't make an additional run that's going to be profitable within the turn limits available, that way you don't have to pay $20 a turn and, you know, engage in the random events table and all that. So you can just say, okay, I'm doing the best that I can. And you might make that decision after you check for, you know, cargo and whatnot. You make a decision, okay, I'm not going to play another turn after. The squares are staggered, and you can always move to any adjacent square. You don't have to worry, there's no diagonals or anything like that. Like I said, oh, no, I'm sorry. I lied about the speed. Engine 1 allows you to go speed 1. Yeah, it's written on here. Engine 2 allows you to go speed 2. Engine 4 allows you to go speed 3. So your ship's not going to be able to go speed 3 unless you upgrade the engines. Now you might say, oh, that sounds like a great idea. It's really expensive fuel-wise to run at speed 3. It's actually cheaper to run at speed 2, though, because you've got to factor in that $20 a turn thing that you're running. And they actually point that out in the base game. They don't point it out here. Like I said, this rule book is about the same size. It's got more stuff in it, but it's got a little less padding. So I'm kind of glad I read both. And we kind of talked to you about things. When first moving from a given planet square to a deep space square, you roll a die against the current crew rating. If the roll succeeds, then you continue normally. If that roll fails, then you make a similar roll against the engines. If that roll succeeds, not greater than the engines, you continue normally. However, if both rolls fail, the engines are reduced by 1. It's only done once per journey. And this is the kind of thing that maybe I missed, you know, where that priority is. And I'm kind of looking for that, because some of the stuff I kind of remember, but like this is not in the sequence of play. There's plenty of times when events might happen. Worlds have their own event tables, but so there's arrival, there's import events, and departure events. I don't think you roll events for just flying. Oh, wild partying, cool. Arrival events take place as your ship arrives at planet. Import events occur once per turn when your ship is on planet. Departure is checked when your ship leaves the planet. A maximum of 1 event usually occurs during each turn, but both arrival and import. Yeah, I don't think there's a in-space event roll. Although there certainly could be room for that. You could have mutinies and all kind of crap like that, but whatever. 2 of the most common events are money cost and time delays. Kind of a reason you want to keep your money, your fuel, stuff like that at good levels, just so you can't just count on things happening. Now, the events are only in the advanced game. Let's look at cargo. There's an event that gives you priority cargo. Okay. So that's what it's for. So yeah, I mostly told you about it. I didn't go through the mechanisms for rolling things up, but we'll get to that, right? Basically, you're going to roll up 3 options that give you a new destination, a type of cargo, and you get to choose what to take on. And you're going to be paid by the distance and the cargo type. So you can kind of look at the chart and make your decisions based on that. Repairs, upgrades, and refueling, I think I mainly went over. Buying spares, hiring crew. You know, again, it's just you roll on these tables, see what the price is, you do them, and you got to pay attention to the sequence of play, because when you're on planet, you have a very strict sequence of what you can do. The turn you land, you can sell goods, and that includes your personal cargo, and that includes your passengers. Just leave. Your passengers pay you up front, so you could space them or something. No, you cannot. Put them in cold storage. Yeah, the stuff you do on planet, you have to be much more careful with the ordering of it. And you have to know, yeah, I'm going to leave planet next turn. I just bought my cargo. Or, yeah, I really ought to try for fuel after you buy your cargo. So you wait, to decide, because now you know what your destination is and everything, and you're much more interested. Give an example of play, and what are the victory conditions? Okay, the victory conditions are a little complex. In the original one, it was just how much cash you've accumulated. But here, it's a little more painful. First of all, you have to check to see if you could make it to your destination. You're not going to get any money for that cargo, but you have to see if you can make it to your destination. If you can't, you've failed. You probably shouldn't be ending the game if you've got cargo, if you've got a destination. But maybe something horrible happened, whatever. But also, if you don't have cargo on board and you're in space, again, a situation that should not arise. You should engineer it so that you've just sold your goods. You just have to get to the nearest planet. And if you don't have the fuel to do either of those, you're fucked. Whatever that means. You've just screwed up based on something stupid. But if you're on a planet, you're fine. Ignore whatever cargo you have on board. You're not going to get paid for it. For your ending score, you have to determine the value of your ship. You add up the fuel, spares, and upgrades, and subtract the damage that you've taken. So you take your available money, add $10 per, add the amount of fuel that you have, add 10 per spare that you have, and then add the cost of any upgrades that you made to the game. And then you lose 20 for each hull system, engines, or cargo gear that you've got damaged, each point of damage that you've got. Now there's some stuff on here that's particularly painful. So hull systems and engines both have to be above 0 for your ship to work. Cargo gear is unnecessary at many planets, but if the planet doesn't have cargo servicing equipment, you have to use your onboard stuff. Okay. And then you're going to just aim for a total value of your ship. Now, I did not look up a couple of the starting things, did I? What do we get here? Place an indicator in turn 1. Place markers on the resource display for 500 money and 70 fuel. Okay, I thought it was 99. All right. On the ship display, set engines, blah, blah, blah. Crew and spares are both at 3. That's what I said they were, so I wasn't lying there. Passengers and captain's cargo 0. Cargo 1 priority at normal, or write these values down. Where do I start? Place your ship on one of the 12 frontier planets randomly. I'm going to use this as my ship. Just get rid of all those damn counters. I'll use red as the first die, and we get a 1 and a 3. I have to find Poret, which should be green. So that's going to be my starting planet. All right, we're ready to start. Now, I'm going to struggle with the system a little bit. I've got to, and just in terms of I'm unfamiliar with the charts and everything. And I'll be going into more detail on them as I'm struggling. And then as the game goes on, I'll probably pull back. Like I said, I pulled out a bunch of extra wooden pieces in case I start figuring out that I want to do something different than I'm doing. And we're going to call the ship the Wild Piggy because it's got a pig on top of it from Falling Sky. And let's go.